We'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Kolpak? Here. Pepcorn?
Here.
Strand?
Here.
Turnberg? Here. Mahoney?
Here. Library. Starting January 1st, the downtown main library and the Carlson Library will be closed Sundays, and the main library will open at 10 a.m. Monday through Thursday. The annual online Reading is So Much Fun Winter's Reading Challenge starts January 6th and runs through March 1st. Readers of all ages can read books to earn chances to enter prize drawings. All three library locations have mitten trees for new and handmade cold weather items, hats, mittens, scarves, earmuffs, etc., of any size to provide members of the community who need them, and the donated items can be dropped off at any library location during regular hours. We have a very special holiday video tonight where Team Fargo across all department wishes everybody a wonderful holiday season and a joyful new year. Let's hear from them now.
Hi, Fargo. Mayor Dr. Tim Mahoney here. We've had a great year here in the city of Fargo. We at Team Fargo want to wish you happy holiday season.
Merry Christmas, Fargo.
And we're wishing you a happy new year from the assessor's office.
We're here to give you some good advice to keep you off the naughty list this year.
We're keeping a watchful eye on the skies for Santa.
It's been our sincere pleasure to serve you all year round.
And to keep you informed 365 days a year.
And help keep your poop in a group.
We're fine-tuning our plans for those just-in-case moments because we're working for you this holiday season.
And every season.
Our job is to keep things bright and bright inside and out.
We can't wait to see you at events in 2025.
May your holiday be filled with joy and your year ahead be financially bright.
Stay safe this holiday season.
And be sure to take care of yourself this holiday season.
We are so grateful there's so much you can benefit from here at the City of Fargo.
We hope you see nothing but smooth connections in your new year.
We hope your holidays are in perfect condition and free of surprises.
We can't wait to curl up with a good book this holiday season.
We are there to help you get to all your festivities this holiday season.
We're wishing you a season of peace, order, and joyful resolution.
We can't wait to show you what we have planned for 2025.
Fargo Police Department wishes you a happy and safe holiday season.
Stay safe on the roads for us this holiday season.
Here's to a season of clearing out the old and bringing in a fresh, joyful new year.
We're wishing you a pure and refreshing holiday season.
We hope you're staying clear and dry in the new year.
From your home team, we can't wait to serve you in 2025.
Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda adding an extra item to the regular agenda to amend the 2025 City Commission meeting calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2024 regular meeting?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 40?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg? Aye. Mahoney?
Aye. Item 41. The expectation that Fargo should end homelessness has seemed to exist in our community for quite a long time. Yet we know that this is not just a Fargo challenge. This is a challenge for our neighboring communities and beyond. While many may not be fully aware of the efforts behind the scenes, the city team, including staff, elected officials, business leaders, and community partners, has been steadfast in pursuing a metro-wide approach to address this critical issue. We have heard a lot about housing first. It's an evidence-based strategy that succeeded in many other communities like ours. We know it works extremely well when it is properly resourced, when we stay true to the strategy and stick with it. Through work of many, we are excited to be broadening the approach and transitioning to a supportive role as we work towards implementing a unified vision for the FM Coalition to End Homelessness and the United Way of Cass Clay. This will help to evolve much of this important work to a broad consortium of metro-wide professionals who are experts in their field. The processes of government oftentimes require time to ensure decisions are made thoughtfully, transparently, and with the community's best interests at heart. This can sometimes create the impression that progress isn't being made or it's being made way too slow. However, I want to assure you that this issue has been a top priority of ours for many months. Chandler Eislinger, who is a recognized subject matter expert in issues surrounding homelessness, has recently taken the position as the FM Coalition to End Homelessness. In just 21 days as the executive director, her expertise and dedication are already making an impact as the coalition works collaboratively with partners across the metro area, especially the United Way of Cass Clay. This comes at a pivotal time when things are starting to come together. It's a perfect combination of collaboration, expertise, and opportunity to make meaningful progress in addressing homelessness. When we shift the focus of housing the unhoused into one metro-wide strategy, we are truly giving it our collective all. This will be the unification of the region's metro groups. I would like to invite Chandler Eislinger from the FM Coalition to End Homelessness and Taylor Severson from the United Way of Cass Clay to share more information on this important work.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for giving us the opportunity to be here this evening. As mentioned, my name is Chandler Eislinger, and I am the new Executive Director at the Fargo-Moorhead Coalition to End Homelessness. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with our work, the mission of the FM Coalition to End Homelessness is that we work in partnership to achieve permanent solutions to prevent and end homelessness, making it rare, brief, and one time. And I'm here with my partner from the United Way.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Severson. I have the great pleasure of serving as the Director of Community Impact at United Way of Cass Clay. And at United Way, we are uniquely focused on understanding our community's greatest challenges and working with our partners across the region to use data-informed solutions and focus on lifting families out of poverty. Our mission is to inspire and activate the community to improve lives, and we've been working to address, prevent, and end homelessness for a number of years.
Tonight we're here to present a snapshot of homelessness that helps contextualize what we've been seeing in our community in recent years, as well as some of the trends in the objectives that have been identified throughout many years of our system working together. So for a little background, since pandemic-era supports have gone away, we all recognize that homelessness has been on the rise once again in the Fargo-Moorhead area. In particular, unsheltered homelessness is reaching crisis levels. And especially in a region that has a deadly winter climate, intervention is more urgent than ever before. We have an incredible community of service providers that has demonstrated success in halting increasing homelessness when those necessary resources are adequately funded and supported by our local policymakers. We can see this in examples related to systematic reductions in veteran homelessness and the efficient use of ARPA funds to conduct rental assistance support throughout our metro area. And however, although increasing shelter capacity alone may seem like an easy solution to addressing increasing homelessness, the evidence-based long-term solutions to creating systematic and sustained reductions in homelessness require enhancements in homelessness prevention and the creation of additional pathways to permanent housing, which we will explore more tonight.
I think it's no surprise to any of us, as well as the residents of our metro area, that homelessness in our community has reached a boiling point, and that there has been this public discourse and public dialogue around how do we take strategic efforts to address homelessness at its root. And I think it's important for us to understand how the system works. As Chandler mentioned, the system has many components, and we'll talk about some of those components here in a little while. But when we think about the system as a whole, right now, what our community is experiencing is system overwhelm. There is more inflow into homelessness. The homelessness response system is overwhelmed. And as a result, there are some pressure valves in that outflow of the system or out of the system that have not yet been released. And so when we think about what does system overwhelm look like, it means that we really need to understand what the need for services is on the front end, while also helping people into permanent housing options and exiting the system overall, thinking about this really comprehensively from end to end.
So what are some of the things we can point to that help us understand that our system is overwhelmed? As you all are acutely aware, shelters have been either at or over capacity for several years. We know that our service providers who are members of the coalition and stakeholder groups have to turn more people away because there aren't enough resources to serve everyone, and the overall rate of homelessness has increased. The graph here on the bottom shows our point in time count numbers in Fargo over the last several years. And as you can see on that green bar, that overall rate of homelessness has continued to increase with a short period of reduction that really dovetails with the availability of some additional rental assistance supports that existed temporarily in the state. And so what we know and what we see as a community are the consequences of an overwhelmed system. Again, we know that unsheltered homelessness increases when the demand for services outweighs the availability of them. We know that shelter stays get longer when people are not able to quickly and efficiently move into permanent housing. And with those shelter stays becoming longer, you can see more and more people becoming chronically homeless. We also know, as you are acutely aware, that the public perception of safety decreases when we're not seeing that system flow the way it's meant to in preventing homelessness and maximizing that outflow into permanent housing. We've seen strain on our emergency services and an increase in their utilization when folks aren't well supported in permanent housing. And we know that the mental and physical well-being of those experiencing homelessness declines when their homelessness is extended beyond what is reasonable.
I mentioned earlier that at United Way, we're focused expressly on lifting families out of poverty. And we think about poverty and understand not only the causes of poverty, but also the consequences. And it's really important for us to understand how these systems play together. And I think that you could take these pie charts, for lack of a better term, and think about them with any community challenge. And we're gonna use these and think about the challenge of homelessness. Our homeless response system has a supply and demand challenge right now. Not simply a supply and demand for additional shelter, but when we think about the system at large, a supply and demand challenge related to the entire system. When a system is improperly scaled to address a community's needs around homelessness, you'll see that the available resources outweigh the focus population, the focus population rather outweighs those available resources, and therefore homelessness increases. When we see that gap start to close, and those available resources start to meet the need of that focused population, we're going to see in our community a significant and strategic systemic decrease in homelessness.
So, as mentioned earlier, there are a couple of different strategies specifically that we know work to prevent and end homelessness. And really embracing those homelessness prevention strategies is what's required in order to minimize the inflow into homelessness. Like Taylor was mentioning on the last slide, we already have community partners who are working to scale up and are providing many of these resources in our community right now. However, we know that the demand for those resources is more than what is currently available within the system. So these are some examples of what categories of homelessness prevention can look like. There's a little bit of mix and match between all of the different categories in terms of what the interventions can look like. But it looks like things like rental assistance. It looks like support for mitigating an eviction, whether that's mediation services or other types of homelessness prevention strategies that keep people in their homes and don't force them onto the street. We also know that when an eviction or when losing someone's housing is inevitable, diversion is also a really important strategy in helping people avoid that homelessness altogether. What are the other resources, whether that's family or other types of assistance we can use in order to ensure that nobody has to go into shelter if there's another option available, or perhaps can move into even another immediate permanent housing solution, which we consider to be rapid rehousing. And so all of those different strategies are just some really high-level examples of what homelessness prevention can look like in our community.
I'd love to highlight an area of success that our community has seen. Again, we have been alongside this work of preventing homelessness in our community for a number of years. Our investment in prevention and diversion programs at their current scale has already seen dramatic reductions in emergency services utilization for our community. What we're seeing is about a 5-to-1 return on investment when we think about infusing resources in prevention and diversion. Again, keeping people from experiencing homelessness in the first place. When we're focused on those sorts of priorities, we're able to save our community significant dollars in the long run. And these types of programs have shown that they're incredibly successful already. And when we have the opportunity to scale these to meet our entire community's needs, as I mentioned on the previous slide, we can see even greater savings, even greater investment back into our community.
So again, when we think about the overall system of the homelessness response system, we think about minimizing inflow into homelessness. When homelessness is inevitable, we think about how do we manage crisis and ensure quick access to shelter and hopefully quick access to housing. And this slide is really an example of how our homelessness response system currently works and how we currently address crisis. So everyone, we don't need to go into all of the minutia of this framework and flowchart here, but essentially when somebody is facing a housing crisis, they call 211, they access some of the resources available in our community, and it is determined what type of support is most appropriate for their specific situation. And then we use an assessment to help assign them to those types of resources that are available. Right now, what we're seeing is that folks are falling through the cracks kind of on both ends of that system. People who we could prevent homelessness for are falling into homelessness because those prevention resources are not scaled up to meet the need. And people who are currently experiencing homelessness, people who are currently living in shelter, are staying there longer because we're not able to maximize that outflow into permanent housing. And so that's really kind of what we're showing here, is that our system actually has a really incredible flow, a really incredible way of delivering services. We just need to make sure that all of the resources required are available and that we're moving those people as quickly as possible out of a crisis situation and into a more permanent one. So speaking of the outflow piece of that, so minimizing inflow into homelessness, that crisis response, and then maximizing outflow into permanent housing, there are a variety, again, different strategies that we can use in order to encourage that quick move into that more long-term housing situation. We've seen success in housing navigation and intensive case management services that really wrap their arms around individuals and help them address those other additional housing stability issues that may be related to not being connected to mainstream benefits, perhaps needing to be connected better to more mental health or recovery-based services. But it is once those folks are in permanent housing that many of those resolutions of additional issues can occur. We also know that maximizing outflow into permanent housing means supporting our landlord partners in any of the challenges that can come up from being a rental provider, and really leveraging that landlord risk mitigation fund to support any of those financial needs that landlords might find themselves in when they're providing such a service to the community. We also know that we need to develop and support innovative pathways to permanent housing, especially for folks who face barriers to accessing housing on their own, or self-resolution is what we tend to call that, because they have some complex backgrounds that prevent them from being able to get into that housing without that additional support. And then, of course, we also know that we need to preserve and increase the supply of housing, kind of across the continuum of housing, but especially with an emphasis on affordable housing and permanent supportive housing. And it's that mixture of all of those different strategies that really creates the conditions where people can move quickly into permanent housing, maintain that stability, and maintain long-term stability in addressing any other issues they may have in their life.
I'd love to highlight that while we're sharing a lot of information with you today about this community context, what works in strategies that are proven across the country when operated to fidelity, those things work really well. What we're also trying to share is that this work requires some technical expertise. And it requires those who are closest to the service of assisting individuals out in exiting homelessness, as well as all parts of the system. When we think about that technical expertise, that's some of what we're sharing today, is that these activities require that technical background, and some of those objectives being met are going to require the system to work together collectively.
So we'd like to move into some of the proposed objectives that have been identified. I've been working in homelessness for several years, and there are many trends that we can see in terms of both what we've already seen efficacy with in our community, and also those best practice solutions that we know we need to add to the kind of menu of services that are available. And I also want to note that all of the things that we will be discussing, although they are trends, they are things that the community has already been talking about. It is really important for us to continue to bring providers along, continue to bring stakeholders along, and building consensus around those strategies, and making sure that we're matching the appropriate organizations and agencies in our community that already exist and scaling those up. And so these are ideas. These are things we hope to build consensus around, and they're also things that we believe will have the biggest impact and the biggest impact on long-term success in our community as well.
I think some of the things that you've likely heard from your teams, our collective community, is that folks have been desiring coordination, there's been a desire for leadership, and there's been a desire for a plan. And we know that this is a region-wide challenge, a metro-wide challenge. And so as we think about some of these proposed activities, this is really what we're coalescing around, is this shared community-based leadership and a plan of set activities with milestones that we hope to achieve, individuals who will be responsible for these activities, as well as our ability to ensure accountability to our shared objectives. So again, to echo what Chandler has already shared, these are our proposed activities and proposed objectives, but we know that in community-based work, sometimes it evolves as we go, and we may need to refocus or redirect where those priorities take us. So here we're going to just quickly run through these next 30 days, some of the activities that will be initiated. We know there are both short-term objectives and long-term objectives that will have outcomes tied to them. Those things will start to grow legs. We know there are things that are very simple that are going to be low-hanging fruit for our community to achieve, and there are other things that are going to take more time to establish and build structure around. We know that this is going to require some level of financial support and financial resourcing. That is part of the reason that United Way of Cass Clay has supported this work for a very long time, is that we recognize the need to put resources behind homeless prevention and homelessness resolution strategies. We've identified some early infrastructure around that financial support need, and we hope to continue to mobilize that in the short term. We also know that our voices alone will not be the ones making decisions in a silo, and that as we think about moving forward with a consensus-built plan, it'll be really essential for us to consult community advisors and a set of community leadership who can help weigh in on these activities. We hope that you will join us in this work and continue to share your perspective and your expertise and your technical knowledge as it relates to our community-wide plan. And finally, we know that these key community partners, those who are already doing this work well, we need to ensure that we can empower them, or rather continue to empower them to do that work and to do it well across those service providers. As we look beyond the next 30 days, we have set some milestones, or rather guideposts, in what will guide us in the next 60 and 90 days. This is where we start to establish some of the things that will be initiated within this time frame, but will take a much longer time for them to be fully developed and fully built. So again, we really need to think about how we can reduce that inflow into homelessness, and this will be a coordinated effort that includes scaling up some programmatic support and direct community assistance. We also know that part of our community conversation has been around affordable housing, and that we're going to need to continue to engage with zoning and others about how we can encourage and emphasize an increase of housing units. And finally, again, this release valve that we need to focus on is exiting folks into permanent housing, so that those who have a housing voucher in hand or have access to permanent housing have the right types of supportive services to be successful and stabilized in permanent housing. And I think I said finally, but I did mean and also. Additionally, we know that our community does not need to be in this very same place a year from now. We do not need to be repeating conversations or brainstorming again next winter. We need to ensure that our community is well prepared to activate plans each time winter crisis happens in our community, so that we can ensure folks are cared for appropriately. And now finally, we also know that when we think about our community supports that engage with or interact with individuals experiencing homelessness, it includes community services like emergency rooms, jails, detox, treatment providers, and law enforcement at large. So it will be essential for us to have a very open and coordinated relationship with those agencies to ensure that we are preventing discharges into homelessness and really strengthen those cooperative partnerships.
And not to belabor the point, but again, this is a coordinated, cooperative approach to ensuring that we will see those systematic and sustained reductions in homelessness over time. It takes all of us working together, all of our different nonprofit partners within the coalition, our different government agencies, and all of the different sectors that touch homelessness, working in the coordination to ensure that we are investing in those strategies and scaling up the strategies that work. So we envision this diagram to have little X's on the people and stakeholders who have roles to play in prevention, ensuring that crisis response is as coordinated and tight as possible, and moving people quickly into those resolution strategies as well. So once again, in order to make homelessness rare, brief, and one time, we must work together to minimize inflow into homelessness, maximize outflow into permanent housing, and we will see a reduced need for crisis services and a systematic reduction in a rate of homelessness, again, making homelessness rare, brief, and one time. We'd love any questions and comments from
Any questions of the commissioners?
Certainly.
Commissioner Strand?
Thanks to both of you and to everybody on your teams for the work you're doing. It's amazing that down the road we're going to have a good story to tell, and we already do. I have a lot of minor questions, but the one overriding question in my mind is, we have a really caring community, and on an ongoing daily basis, all of us hear from citizens and people with ideas. You should do this, you should do this, if you'd only do this, How do we where's the clearinghouse to share people's thinking? I don't know where to send this information and who to share it with, and I want people to know they're heard, and to get it into the mix. So when they share their best thinking, it doesn't disappear into the ether. Is that you, Chandler? Are you the homeless czar now, or how do we get this into the system so that it gets vetted and received and processed and doesn't disappear? Because there's a lot of people with a lot of really, really good ideas, and they care.
Yeah, I think the Homeless Coalition really sees ourselves as that collaborative entity that embraces everybody who sees they have a role to play in addressing homelessness. And so if you receive a proposal and you're unsure of where to send it, you can absolutely send it my way. We do always want to make sure that whatever is being recommended by the community is also vetted against some of those evidence-based practices that we know exist as people who work within this sector and that other folks in the community aren't always privy to or aware of, especially when it comes to some promising practices. But that being said, we welcome innovation, we welcome collaboration, and we welcome the ideas from people who feel like they have a role to play. And so although I will never refer to myself as the homelessness czar, they are welcome to communicate with us, to connect with the coalition, join our coalition meetings, participate in our committees, and leverage their ideas in those spaces.
And I know some commissioners have some ideas, so they're welcome to talk to you and visit with you about different ideas. There has been some discussion about reunification and relocation work as a component of this. Can you comment on that, if we have people that might be better suited to go back to their hometown?
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor, for the question. I know this has been a topic of conversation in our community, and I think what I want to share with the public and our commissioners today is that relocation and reunification of individuals experiencing homelessness is something that our system does every single day. We have a variety of different partners who work to understand maybe how did you get here if you aren't from here, because that does happen. However, we do know the vast majority of people experiencing homelessness in our community are from our region. Perhaps somebody has a family or friends that they are looking to reconnect with. And so we use those organizations who have those funds and supports in order to connect that individual with wherever they're wanting to relocate to or reunify with a family or friend. And so that happens every day. And of course, our organizations need support to continue to provide those efforts, but it is a well-coordinated system that ensures that people are being matched with services to whatever community they may be returning to, and ensuring that they have a soft, safe place to land with housing, and that nobody's just kind of being sent somewhere without any coordination of resources on the back end. So it is something that we do all the time in order to meet the needs of the unique individuals that we're serving.
And we've been doing that for several years now, is that correct? You've served a variety of people over the years?
Yes, yep. There are many different organizations across our community who use that as a strategy, although we do prioritize ensuring that those who feel part of the Fargo-Moorhead area stay here and are provided the services and the access to housing that they want in this community.
Very good. Any other questions?
Yep.
Mr. Kolpak.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you both for being here and for the other partners in the room that are part of the Homelessness Coalition. First of all, this is a community-wide, really region-wide problem, and I appreciate the community-wide bringing solutions to the table with a number of organizations. The Coalition to End Homelessness has over 70 organizations associated with it. It really touches all parts of the community. So thank you for that approach and the collaboration. I also appreciate the fact, and we've had many constituents, to Mr. Commissioner Strand's point earlier, reach out to us with their ideas. But I think one of the bigger concerns is this perception that the work hasn't been getting done, and it's really been. For years, we've been trying to address this very challenging and complex issue. I can tell you in the last 9 months, truly, it's been a daily conversation in City Hall on what are we doing, what actions can we take. I know Assistant City Administrator Brenda Derrick, it's been her priority to work with city staff, but the collaboration with community organizations is so important if we're really going to solve for this problem. So those are my comments. I just have one kind of generalized, and I think you might have, just in summary of your objectives, the 30, 60, 90-day objectives, which is a really good list and to me very actionable, and it will build over time. It will be dynamic, right? There'll be feedback and transparency. Can you speak to how you ended up here now?
I'd love to start. Thank you, Commissioner Kolpak, and thank you for the opportunity to share more about how this work has started to coalesce. I absolutely agree that in our organization, this has been a daily conversation as well. How do we think about our role in supporting our community, and what is our role to support the community in this specific effort? And after a period of time and engaging with our board and other stakeholders, we've continued to hear that, again, desire for leadership, desire for strategic coordination, and desire for a plan. This is something that our organization has been deeply involved in historically. How do we help build the infrastructure for our community to then respond to community challenges? And so that's what calls us to this work, and is something that we see as part of our community infrastructure that will have a generational impact for people who live in this community in years to come.
I think we've also, there are so many different pieces that all need to come together at the right time. And I really appreciate the opportunity that we've had with the level of political will to engage in this conversation in such a public way. Our service providers have been doing incredible work for decades, and they are, quite frankly, the reason why we don't see more homelessness on the street than we see now. And so what we're being called to do is continue to scale up those efforts when our community is facing some really challenging situations with more people falling into homelessness. And so because that is our community circumstance right now, we have to step up to the plate as coalition members and providers to ensure that we are saying to our public and to our community members, this is what we know will be successful and this is what we need. And we're in that moment right now. And so we're just really grateful to have that platform and opportunity to share those evidence-based best practice solutions and build consensus throughout our entire community.
Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. I do have one speaker that wanted to speak to this, so I'll excuse you from the podium because I'll come to your podium. Lenny Wilds is here. Lenny Wilds. Well, I guess Lenny is not here. We'll go to public hearings 42. Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate the support, and I want the commissioners to remember that it's a community effort. City of Fargo is going to step back and be a supportive role, and you guys are going to take this, so thank you very much. Public hearing, Hal Addition is 4th Street North. Approval recommending Planning Commission on 10/1/24 zoning change from DMU, downtown mixed use, to multi-dwelling residential and limited commercial to DMU, downtown mixed use. First rezoning ordinance and a plat of the Hal Addition. Donald Kress without his Christmas sweater, but with his Christmas tie to tell us what's going on.
Santa and the reindeer there, Commissioner. Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress from the Department of Planning and Development. As the mayor has stated, our first item tonight is the Hal Addition. I will be presenting the next two items, and both of them include ordinances prepared by the City Attorney's Office. Hal Addition is located here, bounded by 3rd and 4th Streets North and 6th and 7th Avenues North. It has often been referred to as the SARS block, although as we'll see in a moment, the former SARS service station and all the other buildings have been demolished on this site. The proposal here is to replat, this is block 37 of Keeney and DeWitt's addition, to replat this into a single lot and vacate the alley, which is a public right-of-way at this time. And as we'll see on the site here, like I said, all the buildings have been demolished. Here we're looking northeast from 6th Avenue and 3rd Street. This is the Sanford parking ramp here, and apartment 55 and older housing over here. And then standing on the opposite corner, 4th Street and 6th Avenue. Again, these are houses on 3rd Street. All these are around the periphery of the subject property here. The zoning here, as the mayor stated, is a combination of DMU, which is downtown mixed use, MR3, which is multi-dwelling residential, and one property that's zoned limited commercial. The proposed zone change would zone the entire property downtown mixed use, DMU. This property is in the downtown neighborhood. The subdivision plat, pretty straightforward here. There are, take all the lots here, combine them into a single lot, again, vacate the alley. The vacations of right-of-way are done pursuant to North Dakota Century Code, not Fargo's Land Development Code, and findings specific to that vacation are included in your staff report, and the motion also includes the vacation of the alley. It's a sort of a separate entitlement that goes along with this. Commissioners, your staff report notes the applicant will provide a temporary easement to a utility provider to finish relocating their utility line in the area of the alley. Lumen has a line in here that they need some time to relocate. They'll actually, once this plat is approved, they'll actually relocate it to the new easements that go around the property. Planning staff will record this easement with the plat. The city is not party to this easement. And the applicant, Mr. Linkstead, is finishing up that negotiation with Lumen. The applicant, Stephen Linkstead of J2SL Partners, is with us this evening and might wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation for the Hal Addition. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is anyone present who wishes to speak to the zoning change? Anyone present wishing to speak? If not, we'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Strand.
Thank you. This might be a question for Commissioner Pepcorn, but if it's downtown mixed use, it qualifies, that whole block could qualify for pilot tax incentives and pilots especially, that's for DMU and downtown and NDSU, am I correct?
Yes, and maybe you can talk, Donald, about, they had a neighborhood meeting because we all the neighbors were there, invited, and it went very well. We were nervous. I didn't know how it was going to go, but it actually went very well. Don, you were probably there, but the neighbors are very supportive. If you saw what it looked like before, the housing that they're proposing is going to be a real benefit. And I do think one of the concerns is to make sure that some of it is for a little lower price point for, so people that work downtown can stay there. So, but if you don't mind, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, to kind of, but if you could just kind of summarize that we had a neighborhood meeting and talk about that. Thank you.
Commissioner Pepcorn, yes, sir. The Commissioner is correct. I don't have my staff report in front of me. We did have one before the project went to the Planning Commission. This is in the downtown neighborhood, but if I may go back in space here a little bit, it is across the street here from the Horace Mann neighborhood. That's across 3rd Street, east across 3rd Street. So we invited representatives of both those neighborhoods, as well as Mr. Linkstead and his development team to that. Again, I'm not quoting off my staff report. I believe there's a reference to it in your staff report there. But Commissioner Pepcorn is right. A couple of the residents did say that they were glad to see this being redeveloped. Some of those buildings have been vacant for some time, and they were supportive of the idea that there would be something new here generally. They're generally supportive of that. So Commissioner Pepcorn's recollection is correct there.
Mr. Strand.
Bear with me, Donald. Is this in the Renaissance zone also, this block?
I don't know that answer.
That would have been an interesting consideration as they're looking for expanding the Renaissance.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe that block is in the Renaissance zone. And so I am to stand corrected. It is in the Renaissance zone. So that is correct. So, and basically to summarize, then you get a 5-year tax deferral. And so, but as of now, they have not requested any of those things to my knowledge. So that, does that answer your question, John?
Well, it's good that these incentives exist. So people can take a blighted block like that and turn it around. And it's so close to downtown. This will be transformative for that area.
And it's right on 4th Street, as you know, a gateway to downtown there.
Mr. Chair, can I jump in? But the other good thing is, John, let's say that it could be a larger apartment building or something along that line. All the kids that are there would go to that neighborhood school. So that's another thing. That's another good thing, that there is a neighborhood school just about 3 blocks away, and that would have a positive impact. So thank you. I'm sorry for appropriating time for promoting that, but that's a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
But the blight is really what we like to get rid of there, and I think we all know about what was there before. So I'm glad that the neighborhood is excited about this and what to put in that place. But Commissioner Pepcorn's exactly right. We usually get children with this as well in apartments, so it will help the school district. Any other comments or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg? Aye. Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Public hearing 43, Eagle Valley 5th Edition, approval recommended by Planning Commission, zoning change from limited commercial with a conditional overlay to single dwelling residential. First reading rezoning ordinance. Donald Kress as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property is located way down south here. On the corner of 25th Street South and 76th Avenue South, the blue line here is the current city limit. This area is in Fargo's 4-mile extraterritorial jurisdiction. This is an undeveloped property. This has been undeveloped since it was platted. Here we're looking on 25th and 76th, looking northeast here. These houses all are across the street from the subject property. And here we're looking up 24th Street just to get an idea of that block face. I took a few pictures here. Looking on 74th along the north side of the subject property, and then looking back, this is 25th and 74th, just taking 4 corners worth of photographs there. The subject property is currently zoned LC, limited commercial, with a conditional overlay, which is often applied to commercial zonings on arterials. The proposed zoning is SR5, single dwelling residential. And that without a conditional overlay, since it's single dwelling residential, we usually don't include conditional overlays on that zoning. Your staff report included, or your staff report packet included a concept site plan given to us by the applicant, John Eunice of Eagle Ridge Development. Your approval of the zone change does not approve the site plan, that you're not exactly tied to that site plan. But we always do ask, show us what you've got in mind generally for this. And these appear to be some attached housing units that are a common thing being built in our subdivisions. Mr. Eunice is here with us this evening and may wish to address the commission or provide some additional information on what he has proposed for that lot there. And so the recommended motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen, and that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Is anyone present who wishes to speak to the zoning change? Anyone present who wishes to speak? I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Donald, was there any concern at one time they were worried about too many people getting in that area? Is this the best use of that property, that we're going to switch from commercial to residential?
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Mayor, what in preparation for that, I did thinking a little background research here for you. As you know, this was for a long time under the 2007 growth plan, which is what designated it as commercial, as you stated. But in your commission recently approved the Fargo Growth Plan 2024 on August 19th. And that, as you know, was a reevaluation of the entire growth of the entire area, both Fargo and its extraterritorial jurisdiction. And this, as I think is noted in your staff report there, this was designated as suburban neighborhood, I believe, on that. So a little change in the way we designate future land uses, more of a place type than just colors on a map like the old 2007 plan was. And so this SR5 zoning would be consistent with that designation of, and the housing type proposed by Mr. Eunice here would be consistent with that place type designation.
Thank you. Commissioner Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want number 4. It talks about that this has been looked at with our new land development code isn't going to be done until next year. It's going to take some time, but what they're doing is they're going forward now. Maybe you can talk about this, Don, that you'll look at all these to make sure they comply with the proposed land development code. Can you talk about that? Thank you.
That's pretty much the statement there, Commissioner Pepcorn, that as we're working toward this, the idea will be, of course, as Commissioner Pepcorn suggests, that the new land development code is designed to carry out the concepts of the Fargo Growth Plan 2024. So there is a little bit of a transition time, but we do the best we can in finding the appropriate match to the place type designation, which is, again, the sort of more modern way of looking at this with our new growth plan rather than just static colors on a map. It's a little more dynamic that way.
Just one more thing, Mr. Chair. So the new land development code is going to be very different than our past. It's going to be very good, but the other thing is you don't want to have a moratorium until it's completed, because that would be maybe a year from now, and to me that would have a severe impact. But you also want to make sure that we're complementary and make sure that I'm just saying it's going to be great for the planning department because the standards are going to be much higher than they have been in the past. And so developers will know what to expect before they even come to the planning department. And so it's going to be and obviously we're all going to be involved in it. We just had the first round with everybody having input, and the commissioners and the public are all going to be included. So, but it's going to be this will be a beneficial thing, and it will impact long after all of us are long gone. Especially with the diversion, we're now have to be a lot more aware of how the land gets developed, and that's what the new land development code will do. So I'm sorry for, see, I've only been on planning for a little while now, but they're already indoctrinating me with all the stuff. So,
Kind of sounded like a preacher here. I'm kind of concerned.
I apologize, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate your support, Commissioner Pepcorn.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. You know, I always, I think we should always appreciate single-family home development in any community where we've become an apartment city in many ways. A question I received from a citizen, and it's kind of ringing a bell. He lives down there. There's no place to even go for coffee anymore, hardly. You know, we were trying to meet for coffee, and it was like a 5-minute distance just to meet somebody for coffee in that neighborhood, and yet it's a suburban neighborhood, and the horses are out of the barn. But where are people going to go for those little amenities that make a neighborhood, walkability, connectivity, access to a little store, and we're getting rid of what commercial's left?
Well, there can still, you know, I'm not looking at the 2024 growth plan, Commissioner. I don't want to quote it without looking at it, but I think there can be some supportive commercial around there. Again, I'm not looking at it. I don't want to quote it without looking at it. And you might want to ask Mr. Eunice. He's worked down in this area for many years. He's much of the west side of 25th was part of his development. He might have a perspective on that for you as well, if he'd be willing to comment on that.
And the last time Eagle Ridge was before us, I heard from Mr. Eunice, in fact, and they were very receptive to this whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But the citizens are saying this. They want to buy a cup of coffee somewhere.
Yeah,
and we should help them.
I think the nearest commercial concentration would be on 52nd and 25th there, sir. You're correct.
I think they are looking at that in the growth plan down on 76 doing something because exactly to your.
But is there any commercial availability left?
It will be as we do our growth plan. So
yeah, Commissioner Strand, this area here is this owner has chosen not to develop this at this point, but this and then probably this would be coming up in the future too here. But this is along the arterial, so on a corner of two arterials that may be a commercial property. Again, I'm not looking at the growth plan, so I don't want to quote it without looking at it.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Turnberg? Aye. Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank
Public hearing. Thank you, Donald. Happy holiday.
Yes, sir.
Application for transfer ownership of Class A alcoholic beverage license for Red Lobster Hospitality, doing business at Red Lobster, located at 4215 13th Avenue South. Steve Sprague to explain.
Merry Christmas, Mayor and Commissioners. So this is a transfer with these larger organizations like this, like Red Lobster, these national organizations. Occasionally we see an ownership change, or they move on to a different setup, and that's what we have here. Is just a new group of owners are going to own this Red Lobster in town here. It is a Class A, which is our full liquor license. It does not require food sale, and it does allow a bar. It's a license that we've had discussions with Red Lobster before about possibly selling that license and picking up an FA license, which would require food sales. But at this point, they're not moving forward with that. This is just simply a transfer. It has gone through our background check, and it does come to you with a recommendation of approval from the Liquor Control Board.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer of ownership? Anyone present who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Pipcorn, what's a Class A alcoholic beverage license worth right now if you sold it?
Actually, Steve would know that more than I, because the value that the city has of the license is not the same value that it would be on the market. So can you give us a ballpark figure, Steve?
Yeah, well, of course, it can vary, and the sales of licenses are not disclosed to the city. So the information that I have has come to me kind of secondhand, although we have seen these licenses sell between $250,000 and $300,000. The city's value on them is $115,000 for a Class A license.
And an FA license costs what?
FA is $100,000.
What?
$100,000 for an FA.
Oh, 100,000. I'm sorry. You get those big figures. Okay. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg? Aye. Kolpak? Aye. Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 45, recommendation to adopt resolution of support for Metro COGS Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Michael Maddox to explain.
Merry Christmas, Mayor and members of the Commission. My name is Michael Maddox. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner with the Fargo-Moorhead Metropolitan Council of Governments. And I'm in front of you today seeking a resolution of support for our latest Metropolitan Transportation Plan entitled Metro 2050, Transportation Moving Ahead. I'll just figure out how to work this here, sorry.
Somebody's coming over to help.
That would be nice.
So far, we're not moving ahead, Mike. We're just standing.
We
still.
are not moving ahead. I am not living up to our state policy.
We're
there.
talking heads.
Yeah. Let's see if we have it now. You'll do it. Okay, I'll just say next slide then. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. So our Metropolitan Transportation Plan sets forward federal policy that is used by our agency to kind of plan the future transportation system. Our kind of time horizon for this plan is 20 to 25 years in the future. So we have a pretty far outlook on the transportation system in our region. So we'll just kind of go through these steps here, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible. Next slide, please. So we've been working to update this plan, which is mandated to be updated every 5 years for about 18 months. So we are at the conclusion of this plan, but we look holistically at surface transportation in our region, whether it be the roadway system, transit, bicycle, pedestrian infrastructure, all of the like. And we try to look at that not only from a policy standpoint, from a needs standpoint, but kind of what is the community's context for those modes of transportation. Next slide, please. We are in phase 4 of this plan, which is adoption. You can see the phases here and some of the work that has been done in identifying those needs and setting those policies. Next slide. So we did a very robust outreach effort. We were at many events in the Fargo-Moorhead region over the course of that 18 months. But we engaged members of the community, users of the system, local agencies, our local governments. There were a lot of people that were involved in the development of this plan. Next slide. Kind of our engagement had a different focus for kind of the different phase that we were in this plan. Next slide. During the summer of 2023, we had an online survey that kind of sought to engage the public on what their needs for transportation. This is some of the things that we saw of how people got around in our region. That's one of the things that we do through this plan, how people are using our system, how people would like to use the system, and then we try to link what is there with what people want in the future. Next slide. We also asked people how, if they were king for a day, how would they invest the federal money that comes into our region. So we did a little exercise of them drawing out pie charts on how they would allocate funds to the various modes in our region. That was very informative on what people saw. Of course, we know that there are some funds that can only be used for single purposes, so it's a little bit more complicated, but I think people were pretty right on message and where we've been for the last number of years in our community, increasing bicycle and pedestrian opportunities, increasing transit service, and those things that we've been focused on, and especially kind of giving more of a contextual feel to our roadway network. Next slide. So this is some of the comments that we've received throughout the development of this plan. I won't read each of these, but you can see some of them deal with some ITS, some infrastructure with our signals, bicycle pedestrian access, transit reliability. But I think that there is some messaging that MetroCog and our agencies, our member agencies can do to kind of explain some of these long-range efforts. We kind of always say at MetroCog that, we want people to be involved very early in the process, but that early process is kind of not on people's minds, especially in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. People really comment on things when they see cones out on the roadway. So we're really trying to get people involved, years before a project initiates, which we're really where the decisions are made. Next slide. So this is the format of the plan. We have multiple chapters dealing with some of the modal areas and some of the policy and our goals and objectives. Next slide. So we have a number of goals, and those goals will inform what our key outcomes could be in that 2050 time horizon. Next slide. So here are our 10 goals, and they really match a little bit of what the federal government has as planning emphasis areas. However, there are 2 new ones this year that I would like to call out: the connecting people and places and the transportation decisions. MetroCog this past summer became a transportation management area. It's the next tier of MPO, where we do have a little bit of authority to direct the federal spending that comes into our area for the transportation system. And we'll see that later on in this presentation, some of that financial outlook. But we wanted to incorporate the method by which we make those decisions, and that we work together as a region, not just as individual communities, to make those decisions. But we also wanted to know, or we also wanted to incorporate that connecting people and places. That's really what we're trying to do. We're not just moving around and shuffling around things for our transportation, just looking at cars only. This has an economic impact. It has a quality of life impact, and we really want to take that into account. Next slide. So this is, I mentioned this before, these are our funding forecasts for a short, mid, and long term. Again, this is just the federal money that MetroCog is responsible for programming for projects within this time frame. You can see that there's a fairly large disparity between Minnesota and North Dakota. That's due to the population difference on either side of the river there. And so the money is allocated based upon the number of people in the region. And we also do kind of compete at a statewide level too a little bit. And so we are a bigger population center on the North Dakota side than Moorhead is, kind of competing against the Twin Cities area, unfortunately. Next slide. And so when we go through, we really want to develop a future list of transportation projects that we can see what our priorities are. And you can see that we kind of put them in a different categories, whether that be bike and ped, rehabilitation of the system, extension. We know within the 2030 time frame, when the diversion is certified, all those lands in the southwest area will come out of the floodplain and development will commence. We already are seeing a lot of growth pressure in Horace, but that growth pressure will then continue on in Fargo, and so we need to be ready for that time period. We also want to look at the capacity of our system, but also really focus on safety and maintaining a state of good repair for our current system before we just are building new roadways and looking at how we can right size that infrastructure. Next slide. So we have our fiscal constraint, which is basically the same as the slide before. We can't spend more money than what we are allocated, and so when we are looking for projects, we're really trying to say this is what we can afford. Next slide. And so what we also developed as part of this plan, a reserve list, and this is a new thing for our region. Because we do have control of that fund, we have to make sure that we're judiciously spending that money on time. There are time limits to spend that money. And so we developed a reserve list, and so these projects should be developed alongside of projects that are allocated for funding, just in case something happens, so they can fill in. And you can see from A, B, C, D, E here, kind of one of the thought process was there. Next slide. And we also incorporated transit, as I mentioned. There are a number of transit priorities, and our relationship with MapBus, the transit agency, has changed a little bit because of the movement from TMA to a TMA status. And so we are still figuring out some of those issues and how we are engaged with each agency's process. But we really wanted to incorporate their needs and their goals within our planning framework. They are MapBus is engaged in the update of their 5-year plan right now, the Transit Development Plan, which is ongoing, which MetroCog is leading. Next slide. They have, so in the past, MetroCog has chosen to fund some of those transit priorities, namely the replacement of their bus fleet. And so we ask that they kind of give us their 20-year vision of what their needs are, and this is a representation of what those needs are over the life of this plan. Next slide. So we also asked our consultant to develop kind of the things that we should be working on and developing in the future. Some of those are future corridor studies. And you'll see as we get into the next slides here, a high correlation of projects that will be funded in the future and those that are studied by MetroCog. But we also, recently developed a regional street typology system we've kind of been working on for a number of years, and that was successfully integrated into the Fargo Transportation Plan that came before you earlier this year. A new requirement of a TMA is that we look at congestion in our region and right-sizing the congestion and making sure that people can easily go from place to place, but also knowing that as we grow, congestion will, of course, grow with it. And the other ones I've kind of mentioned before. Next slide. I'll skip this slide. Next slide, please. And so this is one of the key components of our plan. This is our short-term project list, and it identifies those projects that could receive federal funding in the future. And this is a fiscally constrained list based upon the funding that we will receive. You can see a number of projects here. Currently, First Avenue North is scheduled for reconstruction within the next couple of years. You can see on here 17th Avenue South, safety improvement at 52nd and 27th. Those projects, except for the First Avenue one, were directly studied by MetroCog through our corridor study process, as well as some in Minnesota. Right now, we are currently finishing up a 15th Avenue North corridor study. Next slide. So you can see that those projects up there are in the 28 time frame, and then we are currently soliciting for projects for 2029. So we are, again, pretty far off in the future. We always are at least 5 years off in the future. Next slide. Next slide. And so kind of what do we do next? Well, one thing that we update every year is our transportation improvement program, where we do allocate money to those individual projects. We open a solicitation in the fall, and then we ask for those projects to be refined, and we work with all the local jurisdictions in seeing what needs should go first, based upon many metrics. Next slide. And so we are asking tonight that the commission support MetroCog's plan by adopting a resolution, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions of the commissioners? Mr. Pipcorn.
Can I just go real quick while Michael's here to correct me? But so to summarize it, we're now a TMA. And so with that list of projects, it used to be we would send them to the state of North Dakota, and the North Dakota DOT would go through the list and knock them all out. And so now the good news is now it's up to us to summarize it. The bad news is the funding went down instead of, it should have gone up. And actually, so with Matt Bus, same thing. The funding went down a little bit, but I would say, and maybe you can correct me, Michael, but I think eventually it will go up. And it'll be a good thing, because now we're much more self-directed. And so that I do think in the short term, and Michael, you were in a TMA in the past, but could you say, will you give us some optimism that hopefully that will happen?
So the direct responsibility of the funds that we're directly responsible for, that pot did go down.
Right.
And that's basically because the state has a larger pot, right, than they can kind of flex here and there. Right. However, we are still eligible for some of that money. And so this is just funds that we are directly responsible for. We still coordinate with the state. We are still available for money for our regional highway network, which is US 10 and some of the state roadways that run through our region, as well as federal programs that have been plentiful in the last couple of years post-COVID. And so I will say that even though that the funds that directly flow into are maybe a little bit decreased from what they've they have been in the past, that is a steady flow that we can count on. Some years, we get this much, and the other year we get a little bit lower, and then it's kind of a seesaw battle there, and it evens out over time. Now we can count upon these funds to be there, and we can do our proper planning to use those funds.
Can I just add one more thing? So the MetroCog, we're all a part of it. It's a great thing that we're a part of, because one of the things that we're doing, so Horace has lots of pressure, obviously, with the growth. Our planning department has been helping them. They don't have their planning department is a couple people. And so that's the thing MetroCog can help with, because when somebody's driving in their car, they don't see West Fargo, Horace, Fargo. When you drive, you want it to all go together. And so I do think it's a great group to be a part of, and we obviously fund a lot of it, the city of Fargo, but it's just a great thing. And so I do think that's been one of the beneficial things to help Horace, because with the diversion, all that, they're under tremendous pressure to develop, and this is a way that we can kind of help them, I guess. Would you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, I would agree. MetroCog does kind of act as like the long-range regional planning, and so we want to make sure that we're coordinating amongst jurisdictions, and that's one of the key things that we do. Thank you.
Commissioner Kolpak.
I was just going to add to Commissioner Pepcorn's comments, in addition to the every area metro part of this board, 4 of the 5 commissioners here serve on that board because we're the largest metro. So that's all I was going to add.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just curious, I remember when, and it's not always MetroCog, but when they were looking at the reconstruction of the east end of Main Avenue, and there were ranges from 3 lanes to 5 lanes, and then with or without roundabouts, and where we ended up really was a good place. But one of the comments that I think influenced us, at least in my opinion then, was the return on investment, the ROI on developments. And I don't know that I'd heard this much before or always since, that ROI is part of our thinking when we look at expansion and developments and reconfiguring areas. Is that a value? And you mentioned safety, and you mentioned health, and you mentioned economics, but is ROI there?
Yeah, it's really hard to nail down what actual ROI. And I remember the consultant that was hired as part of that process said this is very hard to predict what the return on investment is going to be. I will say that we changed that more into a context-sensitive approach. And so we really want to look at, and we learned a lot from that Main Avenue study, and the ultimate project that was constructed there, is that it was going through the downtown. We didn't want it to be a barrier. There were many businesses along there. And so we've taken that approach, and we've said, when roadways, even if they're U.S. highways, they need to fit the context of the areas that they're going through. And so we have to weigh all of the different users of that system, whether it's the businesses or the people that are traveling through, or it's the pedestrians that need to get across it. And so I think that's kind of the way that we've integrated that ROI, being that we can't necessarily talk to an individual business owner when we're planning for some future roadway in the growth area. But we work with the Fargo Planning Department, especially with the growth plan that was just passed this year, on looking at how we can adopt a context-sensitive approach so that the roadway doesn't be a barrier to that return on investment of those specific areas that will be developed.
And Mayor, might I continue? Just one more. You mentioned the word congestion, and then getting people more quickly or not more slowly across neighborhoods or through town. And then now we're hearing, but one of the discussion points people out there is smart streets, for example. And there's this other side of the whole congestion speed issue is safety and slowing traffic down. Where do we end up with there, and how do we land where we land? Because I'm of the mindset, slow traffic down if that's what it takes to make things safer in neighborhoods. But I don't know where I see different approaches to this.
I am very glad that you asked that question. It is a requirement that we integrate this congestion management process, and we're in a kind of a tough situation. We're kind of the smallest of the large urban systems, which our TMAs are. And so we have kind of said to our federal partners who provide oversight and of kind of what our requirements are, that congestion isn't necessarily a big issue for us. It's those other things that we are looking at. And so we know that as we grow, we're not just trying to push cars through areas. We want to right size the congestion of our area, of our region. And so we want to make sure that, and goes back to that connecting people and places goal, that we can easily connect people to the local places that they want to go. So whether that be neighborhood coffee shops or neighborhood amenities. And so we want to make sure that we're developing those connections, not just for the cars, but for bicycle and pedestrians, for transit systems, for all of those other modes of transportation, and make sure that we're not just focusing on how quickly that you can traverse up the region. Yeah. So I think that's our kind of individual pushback against looking at just solely moving cars and the travel time.
Thank you.
Anything else? Was this moved and seconded, Diana?
No, not yet.
Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Oh, who did that?
There's a tie there.
Strand. Commissioner Strand.
Let her have it.
No.
We'll let Transit have it. Strand. Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mac. Nice report. Item 46, recommendation to sunset the resolution regarding camping on public property and right-of-way. Based on community feedback we have received, as well as comments at this dais from the commissioners, I've been contemplating for some time whether or not to have an immediate resolution or a phased approach. Ultimately, it was through my conversations with Commissioner Strand that I was convinced to adopt a 90-day plan, emphasizing its alignment with a more compassionate and humanitarian approach. Tonight, I am proposing to sunset the resolution prohibiting camping on public property and right-of-ways in 90 days, effective March 23rd, 2025. Through this deliberate and phased sunsetting, rather than an immediate repeal, we can coordinate a well-structured and intentional effort across our departments to ensure this is done effectively. You may have noticed some abandoned tents and belongings frozen to the ground, which is a reflection of the unique challenges posed by our North Dakota weather. Abandoned materials will be removed in the spring once the ground thaws. At last count, we were aware of 5 active camps with a total of 6 people, 3 dogs, and 1 cat. This motion is a demonstrated call to action for all of us to step up strategically and work together to address this issue effectively. I do have 3 speakers that will speak before we have a commission discussion. Olivia Fisher is virtual.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm a Fargo resident. Well, I'm very excited about the plans you have all been working on for our unhoused neighbors. It is discouraging to see that a camping ban is on the table again, because as we should all know by now, criminalizing homelessness through camping bans is not effective and will not reduce the number of people sleeping outside. It is so wonderful to hear about proposed ideas for more low-income housing in Fargo, but unfortunately there will likely always be people who fall through the cracks and have nowhere to go. Considering the low-income housing list has been incredibly long for quite some time, there will certainly be transitional periods where folks receiving services will still need to wait for housing. Some of these people also may not be able to stay at the shelters, whatever their reason may be, so I'm just really unsure where they will be expected to go. Everyone needs a place to sleep, and by criminalizing sleeping outside, you are only going to continue filling the jails solely for public perception, which according to recent crime data, downtown Fargo isn't even the most dangerous area of town and hasn't been for years. And surely everyone here understands that nobody wants to be sleeping out in the freezing cold. It's hard to even fathom how much pain some of our neighbors experience each night. If you criminalize the only option some people have for shelter, you will only be causing further distress and prolonging their homelessness. Implementing more services at a new community center will be wonderful, as we desperately need to be providing mental health and detox services. But nobody will be able to participate in these programs if they are freezing to death at night. I know you're proposing that the camping ban doesn't start until March, but what will happen next winter? What if there are bumps in the road while opening these new centers? Where are people supposed to go until we have a more formulated plan? Because those units will fill up fast. I do believe that numbers of people who resort to camping will lessen once we have these programs, but we cannot disregard their needs while they are waiting for these programs to be fully functioning. For the sake of transparency, I think the public would appreciate consistent updates about this project so that we know if it is working or if there are needs within the community. Now that the chief of police has confirmed that the downtown area did not get nearly as many serious calls as other areas in Fargo, the accusations about the unhoused community being dangerous needs to stop. The actual biggest danger at hand is the possibility of a camping ban. Bulldozers and unnecessary arrests help no one and only increase the city's costs. The most logical decision is also the most humane. Please choose compassion and do not criminalize the encampment. Thank you.
Matt Osborne.
Hello. Merry Christmas. This is Matt Osborne. I'm a condo owner downtown. And I agree with everything that's been said, especially on the FM Coalition. I'm encouraged by that, to have that being part of this. But what I'm asking you too right now is to work together, that you all work together, that you don't work separately. And I know that there's some issue with working together where you'd have to call in the press and all that, but try to work together on this. And it sounds like you've come to some resolution where you're going to not allow the encampments. But my recommendation is to really work with state and federal representatives. And so if you can get in front of, and keep on getting in front of the governor and Hoven and Kramer and these representatives and the state representatives, that you'll increase your chances of getting funding. And really it's the funding for this drug problem that we have to help with that. It's the money that's sitting at the state level that we need to have that available, because you're exhausting the Fargo resources for this problem. And it's really affordable housing. I've heard that, I don't know how many times here. It's affordable housing. Let's get that going now, somehow. And I know there was some proposal the last session to do that, but come up with something in the next 30 days where you have some type of affordable housing for these people that are outside. Because what we don't want is people to come back to the encampments in March, in April, or whatever. And like the speaker had just mentioned, is to have them, we have cold springs. And so it's a matter of getting the funding. And we as citizens, I think, we need to be on the phone with our representatives. We need to be active in this too, and not just downtown. South Fargo, West Fargo, North Fargo. If we don't do anything now, this issue is just going to spill over into the whole Fargo. So that's what I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Rocky Schneider.
Hi, I'm Rocky Schneider with the Downtown Community Partnership. Back again to talk about this, and I just want to really say thank you to everybody working on this, because it's a great community conversation about solutions and taking incremental steps forward. I know when the camping ordinance was first brought out 4 months ago, it was definitely the hottest topic I heard about from business owners and others downtown and others in the community. And I think what staff told us was, we're going to try to take incremental steps. We will come back and update the commission. We'll update you and keep you updated. And I'm happy that we've been kept updated, working with, United Way and the FM Coalition for End Homelessness and a lot of the city staff. We continue to get updated along the way and just appreciate that. And seeing now it's been 4 months, and we're at the point now where we're looking 3 months ahead to end it. I think we can argue about what the right timeline is for each of those steps, but the fact that we're moving forward is very positive and that we're taking actions. And I think the best part about this, though, is the numbers keep going down. I think the engagement team does tremendous work out there and keeping the area clean too. We were obviously behind on the issue because of some federal regulations, and we're starting to get our arms around it, and hopefully we can get ahead of it, I think is the ultimate goal. So I just want to thank everybody working on it. I think this is really good, but also I think there's been a lot of discussions in the 30, 60, 90-day plan that Chandler and Taylor talked about is very important. I think there's a lot of work ahead of us. These steps are all just steps in the process.
I think, to get funding, as they talked about, toward housing first, and instead of talking about, how to make being homeless easier, we should make it tougher to become homeless, I think it should be the focus. And so I think we need to keep working on that. We also need to then work, as James Matthew said when he came back here last February, we need to activate these spaces now. You can't ask people not to camp there and then leave them in the same condition as they were. So we need to work with the park district and the city to activate the riverfront trails again, make it a place where people feel comfortable going down there again, and figure out how we can do that with lights or art or signage, all these types of things that fit into our downtown in focus plan and connect people back through 2nd Avenue from that trailhead back to downtown. And just really want to thank everybody, and we have a lot of work ahead of us, but looking forward to the new year working with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. And this whole topic has been a real challenge to all of us, and we're all stressed to try to do our level best. And I remember when this first appeared for us to consider the notion of a camping ordinance, and how do you get there but also not criminalize homelessness? That was a really big issue, and I think we did that. I don't think we've criminalized homelessness, but we've gone down a path where we can at least address it. And to have 5 on the rivers now versus 41, we have that many now in our warming shelters, and it's just we just have really done remarkably well. And we haven't had a single death yet. That's the measure. That's so important. So I don't know. I just think that our people are doing our level best. Every one of us commissioners are engaged. We're all listening and learning and hearing from people and offering and at the table and aware of the concerns of our people. And it takes that appetite and backbone of the leaders, but it also takes those in the trenches delivering the services. And to have the United Way step up is just huge. I'm very optimistic. I can't wait till the point where this is obviated and we don't need a shelter down the road. We don't need to have these protective services where we've learned now we'll have a diversion to address flooding. We will, through time, have a result here that will really minimize the impacts on people. And it's because of all of the people delivering the services and all of us being willing to go this path. So thanks to each one of you commissioners for your inputs. And Commissioner Turnberg, you're the newest in our group. So you're the most recently to get bombarded with all these ideas out there. But you did it. You really stepped up and you started pushing us to do better and to get a sense of where we're all at. That's important. And it's helping us coagulate our view and our place. But it's good work, and it's still not done. We're not even to January yet. So the weather's still coming.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Kolpak?
Yeah, I just want to also thank Team Fargo. It's been, as I said in my earlier comments, truly a priority for the past several months with daily and weekly conversations that have been ongoing. So thank you. This was all additional work on top of your regular work, and everyone really stepped up. So thank you. But thank you also, as I said, to our community partners stepping up. This is a community-wide problem. And to the two speakers, too, who talked about just a couple points, yes, there's a lot of hard work ahead of us. Communication, transparency is going to be so important that we continue to have a very open dialogue around our progress, around our challenges, and then course correcting. But we are also working very hard with both state and federal legislators and representatives, and with very actionable asks coming before them. So thank you for the comments.
And to Matt's comments, this is a community issue. We need to get everybody involved. If there's federal money, state money, county money, some money, let's all get up here and step up to the plate and help out the best way we can. If there's no other discussion, roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute break, come back at 6:34. Call the meeting back to order. Item 47, discussion transitioning the Downtown Engagement Center to a community service center. We have been listening to our community partners, and we've determined the Downtown Engagement Center is not conducive in the current location. We have also heard from our residents who don't want Fargo to shoulder the whole issue, this issue alone. We agree that this is a community issue. It's a City of Fargo issue for sure, but it's also very much a metro and state issue. All the community partners need to come together, private and public, and have to work together. We have been collaborating with our stakeholders and city staff to determine the best path forward for us to create a framework for the future. What we envision is one facility capable of bringing together our state, county, and local partners under one roof for a more efficient and effective process. Currently, our Downtown Engagement Center, there are over a dozen agencies represented who provide 30 outreach staff members. The new Community Service Center would have 4 core components: a relocated engagement center from the core of the city into a better placed location. Some of the services currently offered at the Gladys Ray Shelter. A deflection center or something like that are to relieve the time-consuming work currently being managed by our Fargo police officers, with the goal to get the officers back on the street as quickly as possible. Mental health providers, including the Southeast Human Services, are the key piece of this because they can connect individuals to mental health care providers so they can get the help they need. As we look towards relocating the engagement center, we need to consider how to create efficiencies with what we are doing today, along with bringing in partners to assist the areas which we see a gap in services. We will continue to offer our services at the engagement center that we do today, and hopefully bring in additional partners that would like to join us. A potential to bring some of the Gladys Ray services at this site allow us to gain efficiencies with our staffing. We know there are needs in the mental health assistance, and by working collaboratively with our partners, we are hoping to offer more robust services. This is a map of the preferred relocation area for a new community service center. At looking at services and walking distances, this would be a preferred location. That being said, if a great facility was available close to this location, we would want to look at it. This gives us a visual of where we'd be provided the services needed and make sure there is access to them. When sites become available, you'll see the needs for the community service center. As we look towards funding, if we can get into an existing building that would save us money and cost approximately $10 million. I'm in discussion with the state for a potential $4 million. In talking to Governor Kelly Armstrong, he is willing to look at something different in a pilot program that helps us to alleviate many of the issues that we're dealing with in our community. We would look to fundraise $2.5 million from private donors. There are grants that we're going after that are at least $1 million, may go up to $3 million. That would leave $2.5 million to the city that could be covered by the sale of current engagement center building and the sale of the old Fargo class public health building. Let me be clear, this is not an expansion of the engagement center. This is a centralization of resources to make it more effective and to do more with less of Fargo resources. The current location was never built to be an engagement center. A new location will give us more room for centralization of services so we can do more work with fewer people. I believe right now we have the momentum, the right mentality, and the right leadership across our community and region to reach our goal of ending homelessness so that there's rare one-time occurrence in somebody's life. The solution we're focused on emphasizes lean government, maximizing our city resources and collaborating with agencies so the whole is greater than our separate parts. Any additional goal to save money on first responder services and emergency mental health resources. Research shows that when you invest in preventing and end this homelessness, you get a 5-fold return on save significant money for our taxpayers. It is my hope we can put all our minds together to find the best path forward in Fargo and the region and build a framework that works. As part of our ongoing efforts, I want to highlight the involvement of Bloomberg Associates. To be clear, this is a philanthropic organization that is dedicated to equipping cities with tools and insights needed to address complex issues such as this. Their guidance has provided us with a fresh perspective and strategic support as we work towards sustainable solutions for our community. I think this answers, and we talk about the funding, is we're bringing other partners to the table. It can't be all Fargo. There has to be other partners that help us reach this. And really, it's the community that will solve this issue for us. I bring this forth as a plan to go forward with. All commissioners are invited to give opportunities to put forth ideas to this idea to help us out. If there's other things that you think should be addressed, please do that anytime you want to do that. I'll come back later with we come up with some solutions or some things where we have to go to the legislative body for $4 million. We have to go to different people and fundraise for $2.5 million. So those areas we will elicit the help of all the commissioners to help us do that. I know when I've talked to several of you commissioners, and you do have some political connections that will help us in that regard. So I have one speaker that we need to listen to, then we can discuss. Deborah Fredrickson, you're up at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Deb Fredrickson, and I live in Fargo. I have been following the work that you have been doing, and I know I can agree with the Deputy Mayor that many people think there hasn't been a lot of work done if they haven't followed it. I can attest that you have, because I've sat at every single meeting or watched it on Zoom, and I just see what the part that a citizen sees. I know you do a great deal more. I also attended the James Mathis seminar on Housing First, and I remember that he was commenting on how Fargo had such a remarkable commitment to ending homelessness. When I am downtown, I see a lot of homeless people. They traverse between the bus station, between the library, the engagement center, and the Salvation Army. I would think that if you had more of a comprehensive building, that would be more efficient rather than be going back and forth. So I really think that's an excellent job, an excellent idea. I know that Fargo is a very progressive town, and I support this proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Open up for commission discussion. Commissioner Kolpak.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add that, you know, as the detail and the factual information comes forward for consideration, that I look forward to, you know, continuing with the idea of your framework. And I really, and you know, given the conversations tonight, I look forward to working with all of the commissioners on the solution. Thank you.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess I'm just confused about what your proposal is for the engagement center for the immediate future. Is there anything for now, or is this all for the future?
I anticipated we try to do this over the next 6 months.
So the engagement center, the where it is now, will stay where it is for now. Is that your plan?
Right now, until we can find a new place for it. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'll go. If you can go back a couple slides and just show. I'll just give you my. Well, first of all, the 2.5 million for the sale of the two buildings. I do agree that those buildings are they're very valuable, and if we decide to move the engagement center out of there, they're valuable and should be developed. But that money certainly should not be used for homelessness. That money should be returned to the city of Fargo, to the general fund. That is not. There's no way that should be earmarked for homelessness. Now, if you can go back another and show the slide of that one right there, that's great. What we need to do is move all the homeless services out of the downtown. That has been a disaster. That's what we're dealing with right now. It's been a disaster. It's been a failure. It's harmed our downtown redevelopment. What needs to happen is all those services need to be moved someplace outside of the downtown, and you can pick it, the industrial park, but we were in Tampa, all their homeless services are not in their downtown. That's where they want people to come. And so if we continue what we're doing, the problem will continue. So to me, the key is we have to move all those, including the Salvation Army. They need to be moved out of the downtown. I know we can't force them, but we can do something to help them to move someplace that's more beneficial to the city of Fargo. And then the last thing is the city of Fargo, as far as any more financial things for homelessness, we have zero. We don't have any money. We need more partners, and we certainly can't be what we are now. We are the lead agency, and we don't have any money. And so we need to make drastic changes. I do think this great, the group that they're talking about is great, and we need to be a collaborating partner, but we cannot be the leader. And on top of that, we don't have any money. That's no exaggeration. If you want to know, talk to our financial director or our administrator and ask them about our financial situation right now in the city of Fargo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments? Mr. Strand.
Thank you. One thing I would like to add to our look forward is we have more assets than the health building and the former police station. We have several assets. Let's consolidate a list of them. Let's find out what they are. I'd like to know, we have the Mid-America Steel site, we have the Civic Center, we have these other properties, we have the water tower locations. But I think that behoove us to find out where they all are, what their potential futures are. And then I'd like to go further with the school districts and the counties to see what lands they have available. But Commissioner Pepcorn, you're raising a good point. And if we could find a way to not do this and use those funds for that and put it in a general fund, but yet still fund this, that's the way to do it. But there's more buildings and more assets, and I'd be really curious what they're worth and how many there are. And thank you all for going forward. At least we're aiming forward. Again, I can't wait till this is all not needed. Affordable housing's at the bottom of this. Evictions are at the bottom of this. Poverty is at the bottom of this. Public health, behavioral health, addictions, these are all connected.
The financial, that's one of the reasons I put up that slide on finances, Commissioner Pepcorn, is basically we have an opportunity to go after the private sector for funding as well. And if there's any other ideas that come up, Commissioner Turnberg had talked to the governor's office, talked about state funding. So we will look for all different ways of trying to fund this. I'm not adverse to doing any of that. Actually, our finances for this year are going to come out better than we expected. And we have the sale of some landfill land that will also help us in a reserve fund. So there are some opportunities in our budgeting that are improving over time, and we'll continue to do that. Also, in talking to Jen Fowle in the health department, we're going to look for grant opportunities as well to help us with any of the costs that we're having in going into the future. So this is just, people wanted a framework for the future. This is kind of a framework for the future. Let's all dig into it and try to work on it and come up with some solutions. But I think that this is at least a framework that we can start to get around and work on. There's no motion in regards to that, but thank you for listening to me. Item 48, you have recommendations for appointments to the following authority and commissions: Renaissance Zone Authority, Historic Preservation Commission, and Native American Commission. You have my recommendations. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Turnberg? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. 49, you have recommendations for appointment by Fargo Youth Initiative. Commissioner Kolbach's recommendations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? You want to tell us about these young people, or?
Yeah, they're an incredible pool of students, and we've seen the participation numbers increase greatly over the last 2 years. So we will be for the first time in a number of years at full capacity for the Fargo Youth Initiative with a lot of energy. So appreciate everyone applying.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Turnberg? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. I did add an extra item, agenda item 52, and fortunate or unfortunate, the Bison won their game and are going to the national playoffs. And unfortunately, a couple of us are going to be down there. So I'm asking a request to move the calendar in 2025 to have our commission meeting instead of on Monday the 6th, at 6 o'clock when the game starts to Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second. Michelle.
Thank you
Excuse
for
me.
understanding. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Turnberg?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Liaison Commissioner assignment updates. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I'd like to mention is the Human Rights Commission is accepting nominations for the Martin Luther King Awards, which are coming around the corner. I believe the deadline for nominations is about the 1st of January. The event itself will be January 20th on a Monday night. I believe we're meeting Tuesday night after that, and because of MLK Day. There's a youth award, there's a business award, and a citizen award, I believe. And Frederick Dissonance will be coordinating the event itself at the Fargo Theater. I'd encourage everybody to attend this event. It's a terrific event. I'd encourage everybody to send nominations in. We've been doing this for 23 years in Fargo, and just the alumni of these awards over the years are an amazing group of people. And if you ever want to, January 20th, when it's miserable and cold out in North Dakota, go to the Fargo Theater. You will go away inspired with a spring in your step because of what you've been exposed to that night. Absolutely terrific performances. And Frederick Dissonance, it'll be youth, the youth of our community. And anyway, send nominations in and put it on your calendar to attend the MLK event on the 20th. You won't regret it.
The young people do such a great job, John. And
It's
the
amazing.
talent is unbelievable. Commissioner Kolpak.
Yep, I have one update, a kind of a fun update. Last week, we had the judging for City Hall decorations. This is my second year being honored to serve as one of 2 judges, along with Tracy Jordray, who's chair of the Arts and Culture Commission, which is part of my portfolio. So I can tell you they clearly amped up the competition after last year. Last year, the 2 winners were inspections and finance. This year, we had the food. We had a full buffet in engineering that was taco, nachos, queso. I mean, it was the whole spread with live entertainment. We had Santa in inspections. We had a whittler in auditor's office, along with their theme, Steve Sprague, Christmas tree farm. I mean, it was just incredible. So let me just tell you what the results were. And next year, we're going to be adding a People's Choice Award, which everyone can vote on. That came out of this year's judging as well, which was a great idea from one of the participants. So Planning and Development won first place with their Mystical Wonderland. And if you walk in there, it was completely transformed into their lobby. The engineering team, as I said, got second place for their rendition of Feliz Navidad with live entertainment. The most handmade effort special award went to the assessor's office. They had a Christmas tree. Every ornament on it was handmade, along with a house village scene that every house was handmade. Most applicable, that's a tough word, applicable creative went to finance with their excellent Christmas theme, pretty clever. And then best curated and classy was administrative and commission, which I had nothing to do with decorating, by the way. And I'll just say the last thing is, and thank you, Diana, who did, is that all of the employees for each of these departments pool their own time and resources to do this. So I just want to make sure you all know that this is really out of the spirit of the holiday, and it is a great example and outcome of a good culture.
Did you really have reindeer stew? I heard somebody served reindeer stew.
Yeah, that was in inspections with Santa.
Commissioner Turnberg, you want me to bring you a bowl of it? Or
No, thank you.
anything to
No
report?
update.
Commissioner Pepcorn.
No update, but wish everyone a Merry Christmas and safe travels, and hopefully you're all getting together with your families and enjoying your reindeer stew or whatever that was.
No prediction on the national championship?
Just a couple. The Bison are going to win, first of all. The second one is the coach from Montana State is going to get a new job before that game, so that will help the Bison. And the third one is the quarterback from Montana State. It's a small guy, and he got hurt the last time they played. He's going to get hurt again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You heard it here.
Resident comments. We have 2 resident comments. Cheryl Bergian is first. And Olivia, we're teeing you up. You're next after that.
Thank you, and I'm Cheryl Bergian. I'm a resident of Fargo. I am actually also a business owner in Fargo. I have my own law office, and I am also have a family member who is an addict and has been homeless. So my knowledge of what happens when people are homeless comes from the personal experience of a family member. And I do have a question for Commissioner Pepcorn. What's the spread?
I know we're not supposed to respond to public comments, but I would give the spread at 7 points, but it might, so we'll see.
Thank you. I understand gambling's big now in sports. I just want to mention that former mayor of Moorhead, Delray Williams, was here, and she would have provided some comment today, but she was unable to because she's not a resident of Fargo. And the form requires that you either be a resident of Fargo or have a business in Fargo. So I would encourage the commission to revisit the policies to permit that those who are members of the Fargo-Moorhead area community have the opportunity also to provide comments, as they would have experience and knowledge and information that could be helpful for the commission. I just want to say that I really support providing home first, providing housing first. I can tell you that my family member who has been an addict, who is clean 7 weeks now, got into supportive housing in rural Minnesota because he had some jail problems. And when he transitioned out of jail, they had a program for him, and he meets with a worker weekly. And he's in housing for up to 2 years, and that has provided him the stability and the connections to find his way into his current recovery. He was mandatory treatment program, successfully completed treatment. And it was those parts of his life that provided that potential for support. So I encourage the city to continue on this path, because I can say that while he is not homeless today, he has been homeless in the past, and it can recur. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia Fisher. Is she on, Greg? Olivia
Can you hear me?
Fisher. Can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello. I'm speaking again tonight because we are now entering our second holiday season amidst the genocide of Palestinians. The massacres have been nonstop, and the destruction has spread far and wide. All year long, I have listened to you all discuss the importance of the safety of our community. So the lack of compassion towards the people of Gaza is disappointing and truly doesn't make sense to me. I haven't heard even a whisper of concern about Palestine from this commission since the ceasefire resolution was voted down. In April, you told us that your hearts are broken for all the people that are suffering, but actions speak louder than words. In the last year, we have seen Israel spread its brutal attacks into Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. The violence in Gaza gets more and more horrific by the day, and many children there don't even want to be alive anymore. I have seen imagery that has shocked me to my core every single day for months. I cannot count the amount of burning bodies I have witnessed or the wails from mourning mothers that I have heard. I've seen so many people shot and killed by drones simply for being in an area where the IOF could see them. In fact, recent articles confirm that these soldiers treat it like a game of who can kill the most innocent people. I've watched the spread of painful skin diseases in Gaza because of the lack of proper hygiene facilities and clean water. And just yesterday, I saw footage of dogs and cats eating the bodies of murdered civilians on the ground outside of a school because Israel was blocking ambulances from entering the area. This doesn't even scrape the surface of the horrors we are witnessing, but I mentioned it all to say that action is long overdue. There have been plenty of events for Palestine organized by the Fargo-Moorhead community over the last year. I don't recall seeing any of you at these public events. If your hearts are truly broken, it would be great to get your support at future events. You can turn that pain into action to make a real impact. The biggest impact would, of course, be to pass that ceasefire resolution, and I highly encourage you all to rethink that decision. Because how can we focus on bettering our community without fighting for justice across the globe? I won't believe that you truly care about us so long as you refuse to bat an eye at the multiple genocides happening in other parts of the world. As we close out this year and you all spend time with your families this week, I ask that you think about families in Gaza. Think about ways you can show up for them and spread awareness about what is happening there. Think about our Palestinian residents here in Fargo and how their lives have been affected. Or if you refuse to do that, at the very least, please reflect on the privilege you have to be able to ignore genocide for over a year. Free Palestine. Thank you.
That's all we have tonight. We're adjourned. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.